this is most definitely the launch of the fall season of this, the 28th year of the Arts Café Mystic. It's true, I'm Christy Max Williams, and as pinch hitter, Lisa has asked me to extend to you her greetings and welcome. And what a day she has provided us. You might like to know that Lisa read her poems on Thursday to 2,000 people at the Apollo Theater in New York City. And then last night to an audience of 100,000 on the Great Lawn in Central Park as part of the Global Citizen Festival. So the Apollo reading was also part of the festival. I might add that this festival also featured performances by Jennifer Lopez, Cyndi Lauper, the band Coldplay, and many other illustrious headliners. Today, Lisa is on a flight to LA, where she and the poet Coleman Barks will collaborate with Coldplay's lead singer and songwriter Chris Martin on an album of poems and music. Nice work if you can get it. I'm sure you join me in congratulating Lisa and understand her absence today. Right. Meanwhile, in her spare time, she also assembled a truly magnificent lineup of poetry and music for you today. So without more ado, let's get on with this show. Our opening voice today is Vivian Shipley, and I should hasten to say that we have rarely had so accomplished a poet to launch a show. Indeed, Vivian is a fellow in poetry of the Connecticut Commission of the Arts, a Connecticut State University distinguished professor, and longtime editor of the Connecticut Review. Her 12 books of poems have garnered a veritable boatload of prizes and honors, including 2 Connecticut Book Awards, the Patterson Award for Sustained Literary Achievement, and her most recent book, Archaeology of Days, was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize. Vivian was born and raised on her family's farm in Kentucky, and these deep roots are reflected in her poetry and worldview. There is an ethical edginess to her poems, a moral intelligence. She has said that she writes poems to help her heart come to terms with what her mind can understand, but her heart can't accept. The Arts Café is proud to present to you Vivian Shipley.
I'd like to begin the reading tonight with a poem. A poem about picking up my father's gravestone in Howe Valley, Kentucky, and it's probably my favorite poem that I've ever written, and so I was really delighted that Baron Wormser picked it for the Robert Frost Foundation Prize because it's a very meaningful poem to me. It's called First Ice. Unlike my sorrow, which has started to scab, grass has not closed over this raw, red Kentucky clay. Over 8 months now, my father's plot is still unmarked, a rupture in my heart that needs to heal. I need to find a name. I've come back to these hills to see the communion altar the Ladies Guild built in Howe Valley Methodist Church with my donation. To measure the other stones so Daddy's will not be the tallest. He avoided standing out, showing off in life, and there's no reason I should think of that he should in death. Marble I'd chosen yesterday is too black, too glossy. I'll have to go back in the morning to Cheneyville, prove Mr. Crumb was right, that it's always women who change the rhymes. What I want is a pint bottle of wild turkey, a jelly glass, to sit in my cousin Sue's kitchen and nip at Jim's country ham. Instead, to thank Hansel Pyle for putting a wreath on my father's grave, I head out across Hardin County, a place so religious, even grapevines are tied to crosses. That's true. Sure enough, I find pictures of Jesus, head wrapped in thorns, cracked linoleum floors, deviled eggs sprinkled with paprika. Minding my manners, I admire trophies won by Hansel's bulls. Linger over the photograph of Sammy, his grand champion, at the Indiana Fair. Done with the judge's ring, Hansel tells me his secret, a donkey to lead cattle around, get them used to a rope. No blue ribbons for the donkey. All night, every night it walked and walked, stupid, helpless, tethered as it was to one halter and then another. In winter, Hansel turned the donkey out to pasture without food. I imagine its cracked hooves scraping at what was in frozen ground, stumbling through February monotony, broken by breath, a shadow moving from tuft to tuft. The donkey knew its duty here, knew its worth, knew its only chance for corn, for hay. A small gray memory, each spring it came back to the pen as I do to Howe Valley, these hills, my father. Tied to reason, to its life, I think of the donkey, of what we accept if we wear it long enough, like the rope hooked to the bull, like octagonal links of a gold necklace I finger, like the weight of grief. The next part is the lead poem in An Archaeology of Days, which is what I'm reading from. This also won the Steve Coet Prize from the San Diego Arts and Entertainment Guild. And it's typical of many of the poems in this book in that it's about current events, which many of you know are not generally uplifting. It's called Cargo. A plover with a broken wing flops on the granite outcropping abutting my seawall. At my computer, I cannot avoid seeing it if I look out the window. I can fold the newspaper on slaughters in Syria, Myanmar, faces of children who can no longer recognize their unveiled mothers, blown into concrete barricades or wedged under car tires. To erase this bird, I must lose my view of Long Island Sound, my beach. The bird hops, stumbles, dragging feathers. Closing my blind, I can blot out not only glare, but thought of the plover, like that truck driver in Laredo, South Texas, who slammed rear doors of his 18-wheeler on 75 illegal immigrants who had crossed the Rio Grande by raft to stash houses. Late July 2017, the trucker knew air conditioning did not work. The 4 vents were blocked. On the interstate, sun flash of semis, the cab cool. In the back, air was stale as a kiln, motion baked out of it. The king of country, George Strait's All My Exes Live in Texas, on the radio drowned heels of hands, pounding like ball-peen hammers on the metal wall. No way to torch the doors open. Stopping at Walmart in San Antonio to relieve himself, the driver opened trailer doors to pitch black. Clobbered by lights, bodies were birds that scattered like a pack of cards thrown up into air. One man lurched out, ran to a customer to beg for water. Too late to shut doors, the trucker feigned surprise at the cargo. 10 people dead, those too weak to stand did not leave. I open the blind, my bird is gone. Then, like the human tide from Mexico, back over the rock it comes. I can block out the sight, but now, like the trucker, I can't ignore its wing. What if the plover won't go away to die? I'd like to believe I have a heart, unlike the driver, to close that trailer tractor door. Drawn by the bird's cries, my dog leaps, straining to get on the beach. Knowing what he will do, I'm tempted. Should I open the gate? In case you're wondering, no, I didn't. And the bird did go away, blessedly, but we all have our moments of inhumanity. That is one. The next one's a bit lighter, a lot lighter. And many of you during COVID have been doing a lot of baking. In fact, many people have been baking obsessively. And so this is a poem entitled Sourdough. I just know I can be a good role model. Nothing can be as bad as the bully in 7th grade. Not even this. My sourdough starter died. Resilient, I will not let it become a metaphor, a setback, sure, a part of the journey, but not a career-ending failure. My dead starter could have been from, say, a rare bloom of mold, too much time forgotten on the kitchen counter in August, or what I feared, lethargy. Neglect, pure and simple neglect on my part. I see the starter's death as a chance to rethink my life goals and find what truly fulfills my spirit and not my stomach. I swear sourdough's demise will not be in vain. I will be an optimist. Sourdough starters are sturdy, can live long, untragic lives, pass from mother to child and back again. Why, I know one in Brooklyn that celebrated a 60th birthday. I'll get a packet of dry sourdough starter, mix it up, feed once a week with flour, milk, let ferment overnight. But I will not fail to think ahead. I'll even give a part of my starter to everyone I know. Share, don't hoard will be my motto. It ensures survival. If I make rolls, dust with cinnamon sugar, no matter what happens between today and the days ahead, something sweet will be waiting. My last two poems are from my new book. It's called Hindsight 2020, which is based pretty much around the COVID experience that all of us have had of one kind or another. The first poem is an ekphrastic poem based on a painting by Pat Singer, Poolhead. And it was a part of the Rattle Ekphrastic Challenge and won the Ekphrastic Prize from Rattle and was published in October 2020. And this is about my sister, Mary Alice, who died in June after a long battle with a brain tumor. Visiting the gardens at Depew Nursing Center, Winter Park, Florida. As if I'm in a zoo, I peer through bars of the black iron fence. Restricted by the coronavirus to outdoor visits, I'm unable to touch my sister parked in a wheelchair by the side. Under the trellis, vines seem to yearn as I do to touch her hair. Azure blue flowers, centered in purple, rest near her face. Eyes closed, lips flatlining. I whisper Mary Oliver's lines. I thought the earth remembered me. She took me back so tenderly, arranging her dark skirts, her pockets full of lichens and seeds. Someone is smeared on fire engine red lipstick, as if my sister might flirt again. Arm on a jukebox, index finger running down a man's tie. Like a live beetle, savaged by fire ants swarming in its cranium. A brain tumor eats from inside out until Mary Alice, who cannot escape her executioner, will die. I know the tumor in her skull is like an ember, burning until any memory of me and her lobes has been turned to white ash. But if I can remove the top of her head, like the surgeon had done to debulk her tumor, I'd like to believe I'd find her pool in Kentucky with us, the three sisters in tank suits. Mary is floating on her back in yellow. I sit on the edge in blue, daring only to dangle my feet in the water. My youngest sister, naturally in red, dives from the high board. As a child, Mary Alice was the good girl, pointed her toes in ballet class, strung glass balls and elastic bracelets in Methodist church camp to help others find salvation. White, the purity of Mary. Red, the blood of Jesus shed even for me. To give me faith, she explained good and evil are like sun and rain. God sends rainbows to make sense of them together. I'd shoot back. I didn't need the world to have meaning, had no ache to be saved or afterlife. Now, to be with her again, I do. And this is a lighthearted ending. I've taught at Southern forever, and last year I had to teach in Zoom, And the worst thing about this altogether was that we had no snow days. We had to keep teaching. And so that was a dreadful loss for me. So this is entitled No Snow Day During COVID-19. The phone would ring, my heart would speed. Classes were canceled, sprung. God was giving me an extra day of life, and I didn't think of snow as a shroud. Swing seats sported white mustaches. Willows had bleached dreadlocks. There was a heaven in not doing anything. Chagall said, time is a river without banks. But limits are what I seek, not this unending quarantine, a blizzard that never stops. It takes courage to turn pages of the New York Times, expecting to see obituaries that say, in lieu of flowers, send Purell. Yesterday, it was mutant strains of the virus from South Africa, Britain, Brazil. Today, Delta. Before isolation was mandated, the winter sky became a moor. I walked the carapace of snow. Before Zoom, I give myself up to mornings of train whistles. Think of the difference in arrivals and departures. No more long afternoons sitting in bath salts, but I used to rub my wine glass rim into song. Now, grateful for the all-night liquor store that will deliver. I no longer sip, but pour Cabernet again, and again. Thank you.
Our musical offering today is the River Gods. Just pause for a moment to contemplate a band that would name itself the River Gods. Being myself an atheist, I'm dubious of deities of every sort. But since the New London-based River Gods launched themselves as a band in 1997, I have believed in their music. For just short of 25 years, the hard-working River Gods have been writing and playing their special brand of folksy, rootsy, rockish music all over our fair state and in every conceivable venue in our region, including this one. Over the years, they have made 7 highly regarded albums, including Passages, which they released last year. Indeed, the Hartford Courant and New Haven Register have hailed the River Gods as among our state's best bands. And Rick Coster of The Day has repeatedly referred to them as simply the best band in our corner of Connecticut. If you are the only person left in Southeastern Connecticut who has not heard and seen the River Gods, I advise you to gird your loins, because here they are, the River Gods.
If I could just dream come to even out the scorn. Don't leave me hanging here, dried up on the vine. Just keep me moving toward that station down the line. If I could just convince my eyes of the beauty all around, even what I can't see, all that matters is right now. Don't leave me hanging here, dying on the vine. Just keep me moving toward. I know you want to see the light beyond the clouds. Right now I need to hear the words come from your mouth. And I believe, don't leave me hanging here, dried up on the vine. Just keep me moving toward that station down the line. Thank you so much. I'm going to play you all kinds of styles and feels here. That first one we started with is Station Down the Line. That's one we've been playing for probably about 20 years in this band, actually. The River Gods have been around for about 25 years, and we're still going here, so we're having a good time.
Yeah. This song is off our most recent album called Passages. Gotta go down now, mama. Both got work to do. Gotta go down now, mama. Someone gotta pay these bills. You know, if I could, I would stay right here with you. I know you're hurting, girl, I'm hurting too. I can pull you through. You know, if I could, I would wipe away your blues. somebody too. Everybody wants somebody. I want someone to want me too. Somebody too. Everybody wants somebody. I want someone to want me too. Please her, please her. You know there's too many rules. It's please her. You know we serve too many fools. If I could, I would send them all right back to school. Stay right here with you. Wipe away your blues. Thank you so much. How's the volume? Is it okay?
Too bad about
Too loud? Okay.
Between me and the drummer.
We like to play loud, but not too loud.
I can't get the drummer on tape. Can't see the camera. Can't see the drummer.
This one we usually play at night, but we're going to try it during the day here.
This one took on a whole new meaning this past year with COVID-19 and being stuck at home and remote teaching and all that was mentioned earlier. So feels good to be singing this out to all of you. Let me out, Lord, so I can see what I can do. Let me out, Lord, so I can see what I can do. If I don't make it to the station, please just take me home with you. Since the morning, oh, I've been working like a dog. Since the morning,
Just the bottom of my heart. Just the bottom. Woo. Just the bottom of my heart. Lift me to the sea. Roll these blues apart. Ben? Let me out, Lord, so I can see what I can do. Let me out, Lord, so I can see what I can do. I don't make it to the station. Please just take me home with you.
Okay, thank you.
See, I knew something, if we played that during the day, something was going to happen.
I think it'd be enough. Thank you.
You guys ready? Out on the road, been gone for days now. Still bleary-eyed from all that showdown. Vision of you crawling from my arms. Out on the road, been gone for days now. Here in her life I left behind. Comes to my room, she cannot find me. Abandoned love, I feel her every curse. Here in her life I left behind. Time shows there is more than main attractions. This world don't offer much distraction. Oh, circus bird, redemption in your cage. It lures me more than their attractions. days now. Vision so clear, it's all in place now. Oh, circus bird, coming home to you. Out on the road, been gone for days now. Thank you so much.
Hopefully there's one more.
Oh, we're good, thank you.
Is that good?
Yes, great, thanks.
So we were fortunate last night. We were at the Hygienic Art Park, which is such a beautiful place. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, but since it's been redone with the big overhang, I was actually on the board a few years back when we put that up, so I was kind of a little bit part of it, but it's so beautiful and such a lovely venue, and we were fortunate to play there last night. We were doing a tribute to one of our favorite songwriters, Mr. Tom Petty, who passed away 4 years ago. And last night was the anniversary of his last concert 4 years ago in Los Angeles, so we did a little tribute with some other bands and played a bunch of Tom Petty songs. So we're going to play you one of those right now.
Yay.
Yeah. This is a song he recorded with his band, very short-lived band Mudcrutch.
Shadows from the footlights made you 50 foot tall. I watched you as the music bounced around the hall. You called me in the morning and sent your card for me. You, dropping ashes in your tea. I wanna wrap you up in a beautiful blue. I wanna wrap you up in a beautiful blue. I wanna wrap you up in a beautiful blue. I do. A shade unlike the rest. You're laughing and you're easy, the way I knew you best. I wanna wrap you up in a beautiful blue. I wanna wrap you up in a beautiful blue. I wanna wrap you up in a beautiful blue. I do. I do. Wrap you up in a beautiful blue. I wanna wrap you up in a beautiful blue. I wanna wrap you up in a beautiful blue. I do. I do. I
enjoy the River Gods. We have one more song for you. We have some CDs for sale if you're interested. We also have some free buttons, so if you like the good old-fashioned pin on your jean jacket, please come get a free River Gods button. We hope you've enjoyed the set.
Thank you for having us.
This one goes out to tonight's poets. It's called Dress Like a Poet. Is there more to glean when you dress like a poet, dress like a poet? It's not how you look, it's how you look at things when you dress like a poet, dress like a poet. It's the beat a little stronger, do the feelings last longer when you dress like a poet, dress like a poet. Are the colors all brighter, the world more exciting when you dress like a poet, dress like a poet? I know all the dances when I'm dressed like a poet, dressed like a poet. You got the time, I'll spin you a rhyme. I'm dressed like a poet, dressed like a poet. I quote Keats and Yeats and Meredith when I'm dressed like a poet, dressed like a poet. I feel my feelings with the best of them when I'm dressed like a poet, dressed like a poet. Put on your autumn coat. Let's take a stroll out in the nighttime air. Hold my hand, love. The future's just a hot from here, yeah. So dress like a poet, love. Dress like a poet. The streets at night, just trying to get it right. Hard to see you with so many around. You know I don't like being stuck in the ground. The streets don't change, baby, the names. I ain't got time for the games, 'cause I need you, I need you, I need you to dress like a poet. Dress like a poet, love. Dressed like a poet. Thank you so much. On the keyboards, Mr. Bill Gross. On the bass, Mr. Margaret. On the drums, Chris DiBiase. On the guitar and vocals, Ms. Nancy Parent. And I'm Ben Parent. RiverGods.com.
Thank you very much.
All right. We would like to take care of a little Arts Cafe business before we proceed with what in boxing they've termed the main event. And to do this piece of business, I'd like to call up the president of the board of the Arts Cafe, John Sutherland.
But I'm up here just to say a few words. Many of you may know that we nearly passed away about 10 or 11 years ago. The funding dried up for the Arts Cafe, and a group of us came together and said, no, that's silly, that's crazy, that's not going to happen. And amongst that group, is a guy called Ben Philbrick. And he's been with us. I just looked up, we got our notification from the IRS of our 501c3 status back in 2011. So it's been just over 11 years we've been in this condition, and we're doing fine. Thank you very much. And thanks to donations from you guys, foundations, and our board of directors. So we're in good health. We hope to keep on going for another 10 years at least. Not sure I will, but anyway, somebody will. But Ben's been a great supporter through all these years, and he got called away to serve in town government in the town of Stonington, the zoning commission. You must think that's a wonderful opportunity, but, but Ben, I'd like you to step forward for a second, if you would. This Ben who's casually dressed for the associate for the situation. Ben, thank you so much, and this is a little token of our appreciation.
A building permit.
Bravo, bravo.
Well, thank you very much. It's
And,
an honor and a privilege to serve with a high-class organization.
Thank you for that compliment. Thank you for everything you've been doing. And good luck with the Stonington Zoning Commission.
You're going to get a hard shell.
You're gonna do it. Thanks, everybody.
Can you imagine having any kind of luck, but good luck, working on the Planning and Zoning Commission? Thank you so much, Ben. What a guy. All right. Our featured poet this evening is Margaret Gibson. Forgive me if I dispense with the usual litany of her vast collection of awards, prizes, and honors. In the context of the poems she has written in recent years, these are trifles. It may seem to you that you have recently heard a lot of Margaret Gibson at the Arts Café. This is because starting in 2014 with the publication of Broken Cup, then continuing in 2018 with Not Hearing the Wood Thrush Sing, and culminating with her new book, The Golden Globe, she has written 3 of the finest collections of poems you might ever hope to read. Indeed, I am confident in saying that no American poet is writing better poems than Margaret Gibson at this moment. The 3 books form a sort of loose trilogy, reporting on the long illness and passing of her late husband, the writer and poet David McCain. But really, they are united as a sort of love story. Love of a mate, love of life, love of the earth. In particular, the poems in The Golden Globe share a love of place, the pond, woods, garden, and seasons of the home in the hills of Preston she shared with David. These poems discover solace and meaning in the natural world, discover a connectedness that provides insight, comfort, and even moments of elation in a time of loss and grief. In reading them, you find yourself smarter, happier, and deeper, if you will. And isn't this what we need and want of poetry? Isn't this what poetry can do better than any other art form? Though these poems play for high stakes, love and death, love and loss, life and death, they somehow travel lightly along a path that leads to a persuasive and useful enlightenment. They earn their sense of hope. Your heart is made lighter in reading them. One more thing. The poems of the Golden Globe exhibit an extraordinary synthesis of mind and heart, of thought and emotion. There is a kind of sorcery in how they arrive at their strange but humanly familiar conclusions. My friends, this is art of the highest order. But won't you see for yourself as you join me in welcoming Margaret Gibson.
Dressed like a poet. I brought this for the cold, if we have it. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, Vivian, for your wonderful poems. Thanks to the river gods. Thanks to every single one of you for being here this afternoon. I don't think we could have a better fall afternoon together, sort of golden and blue day, if we had been able to ask for it ourselves. So whether it was the river gods or some other gods or just all of you kind of hoping you didn't get soaked, whatever the reason, let's be happy we're here together. I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, to hold your applause between poems. I write poems that I hope take you into a deeper and silent place in yourself, and I want you to be able to take that journey with me. I find applause, of course, stirring and wonderful, but I would rather be with you, be present with you in silence, if that's okay, between poems. Thank you. And I hesitate to do this because Christy is so wonderful, but the title of my book is The Glass Globe. I think he thinks I ought to win an award, the Golden Globe. So it's a kind of really happy Freudian slip. But I do, if you go up to buy a book at the end of the reading and ask for the Golden Globe, they won't have one. They will have this. My late husband, David McCain, had Alzheimer's for 11 years. And as many of you know, that illness, for which there is currently no cure, involves a lot of forgetting and gradual loss. In fact, it is called the long goodbye. It's actually an eerily appropriate, whatever, epitaph for it, name for it. But along the way, in that long process of forgetfulness, there are moments that seem immensely present, lit, deeper than one had ever imagined. And so it is a journey into light as well as darkness, into beauty as well as, discomfort. I think also, I want to say that I think of climate change or global climate crisis also as a kind of long goodbye. And I think I have said, and in reference to the kinship between Alzheimer's and global climate crisis, that we human beings seem to have forgotten who we are. And that perhaps on a day like this, it's easy to do so. How could things possibly be going wrong? But I think we have to be together with each other and with the earth each moment, and that is those two strands of being alive on this earth and being with someone you love, as in this case he makes his slow goodbye. Weaving those strands together is what this book is all about. So there is a long goodbye, but there are also lit moments. And you will find out why the book is called The Glass Globe shortly. But I do want to say that this is a sort of round reading. I believe in roundness, not linearness, and we're going to start at a place where in the trilogy of books, this one starts with my late husband's death, and with the moment shortly after that when his daughter and son and I washed his body. The poem is called Washing the Body. And last we washed his body. Last we rolled it to one side of the bed, rocked it gently back. The long length of him settled now onto a clean sheet. Last I followed a crease on his forehead with my finger. Last his daughter washed his hair, massaging his scalp, sloshing the soapy water. Last his son sponged his shoulders. And I each finger, he had beautiful hands. Last his thighs, his knees, his shin blades. Last we washed his feet, their soles a smooth new silk. And I for the last time his genitals, still warm as a wood's earth nestle of wild orchid. His no breath now stayed sweet. Last his eyebrows, bushy, outrageous, a fleck of water caught there bright in the lamplight as if a snowflake from a walk we took years back across a white field had freshly fallen. I don't know who crossed his arms across his chest. And last he was warm when I kissed a mouth that would not close, nor speak, nor allow us to enter the mystery of his being beyond us now. No crossing that threshold. And the silence in the room was, as it always is, ordinary and vast. I've paired poems together throughout the reading, personal and global. And so although this is a poem that I often read at the end of a reading, Because the Earth, I'm going to read it now because it is, again, about a global climate crisis and a sense of lastness. It is a round poem. Like the other poem, it's got some linearity to it. There's a list, but I think you will hear this one come round at the end to where it begins. Because the earth as we know it will end, I plant dahlias. And because dahlias will fade, in late fall I dig up their roots to make a potion that dyes my scarf of white silk the color of the earth. And because the scarf will wear out and will shred, I untie it from around my neck. Off it flies into the wind with the prayer flags. And because my neck will someday not be needed to hold up my head, I take down a recipe for stock, good bone broth. And because my head takes stock of each leaf as it settles onto the dark and shining surface of the pond, I reach for an invisible spool of red cord, knot the cord and begin mending the net we've torn. This net made of air and ocean, made of sun and soil. At junctures woven into this net are jewels whose each facet reflects star groves and owls, minnows and eelgrass, meadowlarks, milkweed and monarchs, so that each apparently single thing exists in the light of everything else. And because the net also trembles as it senses the glacial erratic in any heart that just sits there and sits there and sits there, a mute lament. and because each of us has the power to turn harm into healing, and because the earth as we know it will end. Just now, I plant dahlias. David died on December 27th, which was the 42nd anniversary, wedding anniversary. And so it was a kind of doubled moment. In fact, there's a saying that says, ask of any moment what is left out of it. I think every moment is inclusive of the past and the future and the present very vibrantly. So this poem is called Moment. When your eyes suddenly opened, I brought my face closer, turned into breath and slid into your throat, just as a sigh of out-breath, your last, carried you back to what you'd never left. Brooks and forests, rock trails and deer, steep fields, stars, and the dark meadow no one notices. And you became the impulse a wood thrush yields to, singing. Became once again the slow spread of moss and lichen on granite, once again the ancestors, men who blew on their hands in winter, women who pressed grapes into wine for communion and festival, children at play in the yard. And although time is an onslaught, we live equally in the in-breath of oceans and the out-breath of mountains, as they turn into valley, ravine, and field. It is always just one moment we inhabit. Just so, when we married, I crossed the room, I walked toward you, and you took my face into your hands, according to the ancient compact of earth and sun, and the original brightness of that moment is the original brightness of this. That day was this day, and we said yes. We said yes. Those are big moments. This poem, Reflection Looking Straight Ahead, is about a very ordinary sort of moment. I wear earrings, I put them on looking into the mirror, I comb my hair looking into the mirror. It happens every day, sometimes more than once during the day. And while I was doing that once, I noticed that there was a reflection from a painting in the living room coming through the door that was in the mirror with me, alongside my face. And this is the poem that came from that. Reflection, looking straight ahead. This morning, I have to confess, mirrors confuse me, especially the small one over the dresser that faces the open bedroom door, so that all this while, years really, brushing my hair, choosing an earring, looking straight ahead, I haven't noticed that at least half of the painting over the sofa in the next room floats in the mirror. A field and sky at sundown, right there next to my face. I know that to look is one thing, to see another, and that it's more a matter of it's more than a matter of angle, focus, stance. But to think that all the while I've been leaning in close, the painting has been there, field and sky, and noticing them now, finally, I'm drawn to consider what else daily I live with and don't notice, afraid to, perhaps. As a child, I'd drift into wondering, what if, after the final conflagration, erasure, rapture, or roiling upheaval, what if only I survive? How then would I find food, or grow it, make a brick, understand gravity, list the elements, solve an equation, sketch an atom, hum the whole of Beethoven's Ninth, recall a wren? And why must I pare myself down to the last one left before I admit the fields and the woods already are silent, as nearly silent as they are in the painting only partially reflected in the mirror, where next to my face summer field and horizon lie close, so close we share the same skin, the same sun already gone down gold behind dark cedars, leaving the sky lit. The immense painted sky drizzled with delicate black smatter, with tiny motes that fall on everything equally. And I didn't notice them before. I didn't see them. Until now, here they are, falling into a mirror in which simply to see myself there rouses the question each breath of mine has tried to conceal. Why must I die? During David's long illness, one way of describing it, I suppose, was a process of subtraction. Certain words would go, then others, then certain memories or certain abilities or whatever. It was a gradual process of subtraction. We had to learn a new way to communicate with each other than verbally. And we did that. We were still able to reach each other fully, even at the end. But having said that, I often wondered what he knew, because there were things he couldn't tell me anymore in language, and things got simpler in a way for him. So I spent a long time thinking about this during the illness and afterwards. This poem, I need to tell you one thing about it. There are some key words that have words inside them. I'll give you an example. Inside the word beatitude is the word be. Inside the word bless is the word less. Can you visualize that? Okay, there'll be some more words like that. And wondering what was going on with David in his sometimes silence was also like wondering where the word was inside the word, what was going on there. So this poem is called What He Knew, and there are pauses between sections, so I'll just pause briefly. Before Alzheimer's and during it, when he spoke in stray words or in sounds, he sometimes moved his hands like birds in flight, so that watching his hands punctuate the air, I'd ask myself, am I watching birds disappear or a flower opening? If we can say that language is the house of being, a friend begins, and because I don't know, I enter quietly the house each word is, looking for the word inside the word, its sequestered essence. Inside beatitude, be. Inside bless, less. Be less. And if illness is a spiritual path, he surrendered loss by loss, word by word, what he'd learned to construct, what he'd learned to imagine as a self. Does he still know you? People like to ask that question. There's a law in physics that says nothing is lost. The spiritual law that may correspond is this: not until everything is taken or surrendered will we find out what remains. I remember late in the illness, he saw geese flying low along a river, and he moved his arms as their wings, his body an inaudible shapeliness, his mind perhaps a mirror. Another way to say it, he was word made flesh. A book falls open to these words. Ultimate meaning is not a matter of language at all. In the Zen notion, words trace the ultimate as a flight of birds traces their course through the air. That is, one might, if anything, say, a form of saying nothing, as bird, cloud, flight, wing, skein, air intermingle, even as they shine alone. Inside notion, no. Inside negate, a gate. Inside silence, a lens. In the nursing home one morning, doing nothing, waiting as sun turned the table gold, we were looking at the moth orchid on that table, how its shadow flower made a rounded pair of wings. We were studying Revelation by shadow, or I was, when he reached for my hand, and out of nowhere, fully awake and smiling, a nature ripened and innate, said, "I'm sorry I said that to you." And although I had no way of knowing what he referred to, he knew. And so I let the moment be the golden flower our lives already are, even when we are immersed in shadow. "It's okay," I said, as we kissed a moth's kiss, light, and the moment folded its wings and settled into being. Vivian asked me when we got here if I was still living in that place down, that house down the dirt road. Yeah, I'm in a different house, but on the same dirt road. There are only two. And I've been there for 45 years. And I tell you that because this poem, 1 hour, takes place on the grass with the trees around and the pond and so forth back in the woods where I've lived for 45 years, where some of you here have come to meditate and some of you to celebrate solstice and other people to hike in the woods and so on. The poem has an epigraph. I'll just tell you one funny thing. Years and years ago, I heard a student poet introducing her poem and said, and the poem has an epitaph. It's really hard sometimes for me not to, say. Anyway, this poem has an epigraph, something that was said by the writer Stephen Levine, who wrote a lot of books on death and dying. And what Stephen Levine asked was this question: if you had 1 hour to live and could make only one call, who would it be to? What would you say? And why are you waiting? The poem is called 1 Hour. Night, and I come up the hill toward the house, away from the pond where the tree frogs are singing. Otherwise, it's quiet. And before I reach the yellow rectangular slabs of light which the house windows, lit from within, cast onto the dark grass, I turn and look up at the stars. I know where I am as accurately as any astronomer who plots the position of Deneb, that lighthouse up there, unreachable but for the delay of light. One need only track the prepositions I use to pinpoint where, according to the graph in my mind, I am. But I have no idea where you are, my displaced beloved. Perhaps that's why I turn myself around and around, turning the way the tilting earth, shelterless in the night sky, turns. I suppose there's an aerial vantage point from which the earth is visibly whole. For me, the view is limited to oak rim, pond, hill, this place where if I only had 1 hour left, I wouldn't know in what direction to call your name. Oh, I don't know where soon enough I will be going, only where I am now, and for that great gift I bow down. I bow down to this darkened plot of earth you in particular loved, and on which we stayed awake together the whole of one night, inside by the kitchen window where we watched a lunar eclipse. And what did it matter? We could see only the shadow of the earth's rim, then the earth sliding gradually, partially across the moon. You said ever so gently, "It's good to be here, and with you." I said this in the newspaper interview that Stephen Koster gave me questions, but that poem does what I think I hope a lot of poems, or this book as a whole does, is it links us as individuals, as couples, as groups, as people, with the planet, with the earth. And if it takes an eclipse to make us see the shadow of the earth and to know where we are, well, then it takes an eclipse. But hopefully, it doesn't take that. Living where I do, and and after David died, I was alone for some years, and so you think about this when I walk the dog out at night in the winter, and it's icy. So what'll happen if I slip? The cell phone doesn't work in the house, doesn't work anywhere around. So this poem begins with, there are a couple of poems other poems in here that have epigraphs that have koans as the epigraph. And this one is, "The tiger fears the human heart." The human fears the tiger's kindness. I'm still working on that one. Tiger, tiger. When I die, I'd rather not have slipped on the slate walk one winter moment, in the dark alone and with no one in reach of my voice. Lying there, going gradually numb, only awake because of the searing pain that won't let me stand on my own, will I offer myself calmly to the unknown? Will there be stars in which to lose myself? If this is one way to die, there are others equally as steep. But it's possible not to be afraid of being afraid. It is possible to be returned to a moment one regrets, the voice sharp, heart brusque, and this time stand still when the tiger springs. This time smile into the tiger's eyes and let the entire universe of precarious bounty sweep in. It is possible to be intimate, to be kind. The opposite of intimacy and kindness, they're coming for me. The opposite of intimacy and kindness is, in my book, greed. And this poem also will ask you to, right in the beginning, to look inside the word immortal and find inside it the word more. I love to quote William Blake, "More, more, more is the cry of the forsaken soul." And as I said, sometimes discovering who you are is a process of subtraction, not a process of adding more, more, more. This has planetary consequences as well as personal consequences. The poem is called Greed. Even the fox of legend knows that inside immortal is more. Extinction is a fox skin that rots in the ravine behind the house whose foundation is eroding. Will you be spared? will I? What shall we mourn? A river? A flower? A tongue on the spiral galaxy of the body? A peach? Add to that the pain each of us has not acknowledged. Were we less churlish and afraid, perhaps we might investigate how long it takes to imagine Earth without us, how long to sever the link between relish and ravish. I'm going to read the title poem now called The Glass Globe. I think what drew Christy was that golden moment in the poem, what he knew, when we're golden in shadow, so here we go. And the eclipse with the moon golden and all the rest
Must have been.
But it is the glass globe. And the globe that it's based on, I saw when I was a kid going up my Aunt Mimi's staircase, and it was this big glass hand-blown globe, which will be described in the poem. And she had a candle inside of it, and I thought it was the most magical thing in the entire world. And lucky me, it came to me after her death. How did she know? I don't know. I have written about this globe before, and you will hear in the beginning part of the poem some prose that I'm quoting myself from an earlier thing. This glass globe rests on a table in front of a window, and I tried very hard to be very careful around it. Dusting, vacuuming, being in a bad mood, anything, because I treasured it. This poem is also of one of those which finds both the future and the past in the present moment. So, The Glass Globe. Wanting to begin again, a form of denial, I copy from a book, rearranging the words with a shaking hand. This morning, from where I sit, the rug is dark blue and burgundy, brighter where a length of full sun from the east window falls. On the shelf of the bay window, a large glass globe, hand-blown, the color of the air over the shallows of the Sound summer mornings, shimmers. It all but floats. This morning, glad of it, I'm not going anywhere, content as the globe fills with the quiet simplicity of light. This glass globe, it's a made thing, a synthesis of air, a synthesis of sand and fire, air and muscle, lung and tool, a flaring of energies joined and transformed, and because of the quality of attention that went into it, beautiful. And it rests in a precarious place. I have to move it as I open the windows. I shift it when I dust. And if I'm not careful, my mood, hard and angular, I may knock against it. And this is history. This is prose, my prose. Words in a book now out of print, words underlined by my husband, whose hand now is ash in a wood-fired ceramic jar. Except for me, everyone who came to our wedding is dead. I'm in another house now. The glass globe rests in another morning's light. Each morning I walk out of this house to stand alone in the quiet of these woods whose leaf-rumpled earth so long ago now was cleared, planted, grazed, hayed, harvested, abandoned. Before that, scraped clean by the sharp edge of the glacier. Before that, marsh and sediment. Before that, shoal and sea depth. Before that, stone. When I take my shoes off, my bare feet touch granite that was here before leafy decay and woods earth formed. Now I stand on it shaken. I've done it. The fault is mine. I remember a Chinese sage holding up a ceramic bowl, smaller than the globe in my window, but beautiful. Therefore the same. Everything that partakes of beauty is the same. And this gentlest of sages smiled as he said, the bowl is already broken. And he meant, live with it that way. Love it. Love it crazed and cracked. Love it crazed and cracked. Love it broken. Because everything already is broken. And was it moments ago, dusting, I lifted the glass globe, and when, even gently, I set it down, it cracked. Despite generations of care and abuse, it cracked. Now 2 fault lines rising from the base nearly to the lip. And here's the crazy miracle. It holds. It still holds. But do the math, estimate probability, run the numbers, then stand here, bare feet on raw granite, from which a whispered certainty, we're done for, rises razor thin through flesh and bone, then lodges a splinter of glass in my throat. So I said this was a round reading, and we're going to, at the end of I have read this poem at the Arts Café Mystic before. It was written maybe 3 years ago, and I think the reading when the Not Hearing the Wood Thrush, I read this one as a new poem. It ends the book. It is a poem that is, I think of as the companion poem to the poem that opened the book and which opened this reading, Washing His Body. And I was thinking how easy, relatively easy it is by comparison to grieve for someone you love. It's unimaginable to think of someone you love dying, but to grieve, as I said and have said, is a measure of love, measuring the immeasurable. But to think of the whole planet dying, to think of global climate crisis, to really get that into your heart and mind is very difficult because it's so large, and because we've always been told that nature was immortal. We are not, but nature would be. So I was thinking, how then do you do that? How do you communicate a grief for the possible demise of the planet? And I thought, well, maybe you do it the same way you do for a person you love. So this poem washes the body of the earth. You will hear that repeated word last again that you heard before. The speaker in this poem is, I'm not sure who, someone or what, someone no longer alive, speaking to me and directing my attention to the earth. And it's a long list, it's a long poem. But I would invite you to let your attention get snagged wherever it does. I'm trying to paint a portrait not just of the natural world, but of the human world that we have created, all that will be lost. It is all one body, we and the earth. The poem is called Irrevocable. Someone no longer alive is hovering over a great expanse of smartweed, panic grass, and midden, where a house used to be, where trees and gardens once flourished, where puddles and ponds held a sky of clouds and stars in place for a moment, and you lived there. Ah, my dear, I speak from the liminal space where your beloved's last barely audible breath slipped into your body, then out the window into the winter chill, whose horizon line it rolled up as if it was twine into a point, a still point, a full stop that opens the heart. From that point I speak. As once you washed the body of your beloved, let us wash for the last time this one earth, this only and only once and for all earth, as if it were a lover who has died, and we, not knowing what to do, at last must wash the poles north and south, where long ago the ice cracked open, sheared off, and melted. Last, the mountain peaks. Last, the crowns of oaks and maples on whose bare branches long strips of torn plastic flutter. Also, the steeples, the turrets, the domes. Last, the open fields and meadows, wash them clean. The vast desert and its last oasis, riverbeds and shrunken rills, ravines and gullies. The rocky promontories from which we viewed the sea as it rose to cover the cities. Last, the cities, submerged full fathom or in low tide, only the towers and the tips of the high-rises winking up. Last, the sidewalks, shop windows, market stalls. Last, pebble, shell, and skull. Last, lark and satellite wash them, and the field of broken mirrors. Last, the house. Last, the bed. Last, the hills of midden and their treasures. A button, a seed, a feather, a zipper, a chip of china plate. Last, the nose cone, the black box, the trawler, the landing gear, the microchip, the missing part. Last, the kiva, the sweat lodge, the drum. Last, the prayer rugs, the pews, the cushions. Last, the seat of enlightenment beneath what remains of the small trees spreading canopy. Last, factories, foundries, mills. The maze of subway tunnels, the turnstiles. Last, the eye of the needle through which we could not pass. Last, a gun, a mine, a missile. Last, a bridge. Last, middle C on the piano. Last, a cello, a violoncello, in particular the sonata for violoncello number 2 in D. Precious because it was the last music you listened to. Precious because the last word your beloved spoke, you didn't know it was last. Last, the pattern of fish displayed on ice and their many-eyed, one-eyed gaze. Last, the last whale beached on the shore at Truro. Last, the glint of an eye in the periwinkle, the lovely, sinuous ripple of a reclusive snake. Last, the chemicals, the vitamins, the pills, the chemicals. Last, a hearing aid, a pair of binoculars, a surgeon's knife, a sling, a robotic hand. Last, to list only a few from the multitude that perished: fox and laughing gull, swallowtail and hawk, lion, panther, coyote, vole, giraffe, mosquito, trillium, hummingbird, hibiscus, owl. Last, the very last line in a poem by Rilke, the line you can't forget the ache of, the line you didn't enact, not one syllable of it. You must change your life. Space, of course, lasts. I walk upon it as one would walk on a tablecloth for a table no one will set. What's left of my eyesight has dimmed. What I hear is only wind, and that muted. And because I have nothing to write on, I build cairn after cairn, lifting stones, balancing them, touching what remains in place as if it were a new alphabet or a sentence in Braille. These stones, these silences, the last words held in mind for a moment, as if they were a net of fireflies shimmering in a summer field one can't tell apart from a night sky and stars. Wash them. Each stone, each firefly. Wash them clean. This one a love cry, that one lament. And the last one, the wing of a warning, you might still be able to hear. Just as once long ago you caught the smoke of the oracle rising from a rift zone in the center of the earth. If these cairns, these stone syllables survive, there may be no one left to read the poem they write. But if by chance there is, let the stones be read aloud, so that a human voice might widen its reach, floating off among the stars like the ringing through of a great bronze bell, like the audible layers of birdsong gradually moving west as dawn brightens, or used to, and the great earth turns. So, we have it in our hands. We have each other in our arms. We have it in our hands, not to make the title of that poem, Irrevocable, come true. I pass the words to you, transform them, and pass them to others. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Margaret. And thank you, Vivian Shipley. And thank you to the River Gods. If you'd like to take a little of Margaret Gibson home with you, I urge you to purchase The Glass Globe. It is a beautiful book. It is good health to read. We also, that is, the band also would be glad to sell you some of their CDs, which I commend to you. Passages in particular is an exceptional album. The Arts Cafe will be back. It's not altogether clear what that next date will be, so stay tuned. If you're not on our website, that is, if you're not on our e-list, won't you please also at the book sales counter, give us your email address and we'll make sure you know about future programs. Our last thanks as always are to you, your attention, your good humor, your heart. This is why the Arts Cafe exists. Thank you so much.